Hey, what's going on, Snaps fans? Aaron Murray here doing a little post playoff reaction time. New rankings came out just a few minutes ago. I think T-Bob's putting the kiddos to sleep. So you got me in the meantime breaking it down. So make sure you put your questions in the chat. I'll be getting to those as we break down what we saw from the newest rankings in the college football poll. So first off, like, subscribe. We appreciate all the love. If you were not live and present with us earlier, we had David Pollock on breaking down everything in college football, specifically diving into the SEC matchup between Georgia and Alabama this weekend. So make sure you go check that out at some point tomorrow. T-Bob and myself will be doing our entire live show discussing all the matchups this weekend, what we like, what we don't like, breaking down the games and answering your questions. So make sure you join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. All right. So let's get into these rankings. Let's pull them up real quick so we can see top four remain, top five remain pretty consistent. Obviously, Ohio State drops out with the loss to Michigan. Washington moves up to 3, Florida State at 4, Oregon 5, Ohio State 6, Texas 7, Alabama 8. That's really all that matters. 9 through 25, at least when it comes to making it to the Final Four, don't really matter right now. Obviously, they matter in the sense of boosting certain teams' resumes to make them look a little bit better in the committee's eyes going forward. So the first thing that jumps to me is Oregon still at 5. And for those who watched the show tonight, they did a nice little graphic essentially displaying Oregon's strength of schedule this season. It is worse than Alabama. It is worse than Texas. Oregon's schedule, and T-Bob and I discussed this a little bit the other day, while the Pac-12 looked really good to start the season, and they've definitely outperformed what we kind of anticipated that conference looking like, has kind of faltered a little bit towards the end of the season. Utah's not been as strong. USC's not been as strong. UCLA's had some bad moments, obviously with issues with the quarterback position. It just has not helped the perception of the conference. It has not helped what the wins truly look like for Oregon. So I like Oregon. For those who watch the show know that I'm a big fan of what they're doing on both sides of the football, but I'm also a big fan of what Texas is doing. I'm also a big fan of what Alabama's doing. And you look at their resumes stacked up against Oregon, I like them more. So now it becomes the question of, can Alabama jump up if they do beat Georgia? Could they jump Oregon? And I put a fun little poll out not too long ago about this, a little bit of, if you have a one-loss Texas, a one-loss Alabama, a one-loss Oregon, and say obviously Washington's out, Florida State loses to Louisville, who would kind of round it out? Who would be left out of that situation essentially? Would it be Oregon left out? Would it be Texas? Would it be Alabama? To me, you have to look at strength of schedule a little bit. I am worried, though, by the committee putting Oregon where they put them right now, because they would have the second best win this weekend. You would beat Washington, who right now is the number 3 team. You would avenge that loss, who's your only loss of the season. It wouldn't be as good as Alabama's win. So I think that's where you maybe see Alabama take a massive leap into the top 4 if they do win the football game. But they would have a better win. I'm sorry, Oregon here. They would have a better win than Texas over Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's still in the top 20, so it's no slouch of a victory for the Longhorns if you do go 12-1 and win in the Big 12 and win the Big 12 conference. But I think it's more likely that maybe you see Alabama jump Oregon, but then you're going to have Texas fans saying, what the hell? We beat Alabama in their home stadium by double digits. So that's why the whole Oregon, where they're at right now, makes me feel like the committee really values, who they are. Boo Corrigan said it, the way they've won this season, and then the way in which they won, especially versus Oregon State last week, and then winning versus Washington. So for as much as I want to bitch and moan about strength of schedule and how I don't think that Oregon should be ahead of those other 2 teams, I don't see them moving. They've been ahead for 5 weeks. They're going to have the second toughest game going against Washington, the number 3 team in the country. If they win this weekend, Oregon will be in. The question then becomes, can Alabama, with a win versus the number 1 team in the country, a team that hasn't lost for 29 straight games, could they somehow jump all the way into the top 4? And they're going to need some help. Obviously, they're most likely going to need Florida State to lose. I don't think Ohio State is not in this situation. Ohio State will get jumped by both Texas and Alabama. If they win, they're just kind of a placeholder there at number 6 until conference championship week. So kind of my general thoughts. I'm going to get to some of the questions right now in the chat. First off, Mac Lindsay, almost to 9K. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are right on the verge. Obviously, all y'all know 10K is the goal before the national championship. So a little over a month away from that. So appreciate all the love and support from everyone that has been joining us on our journey to 10K. Sorry. All right. Mac Lindsay also asked, should a 2-loss Missouri still be ranked over LSU, even though LSU beat them? Yes. LSU is 9-3. Missouri's 10-2. I think Missouri, and I've talked about this on a later show with Cole Kublik. If this was a 12-game playoff scenario, which we'll get next year, I think Missouri is a dangerous football team. I think Missouri is a team that not a lot of teams want to face right now because they're really good on both sides of the football. They can get after you on the defense. Their defensive line is tenacious. They got length at the cornerback position. Luther Burden's a beast. Cody Schrader has just been one of the best running backs in the country. The quarterback has done significantly better than he did a year ago. I think Brady Cook has been magnificent. I think that's a complete football team. So I think when you look at that football team and how they performed week in and week out, especially how dominant they've been as of late, what they look like on the road versus Georgia, I think that's a really good football team. I think they deserve to be inside the top 10. And like I said, I think if this was next year, I think Missouri would be a really fun team to kind of watch in a playoff run. I think the more interesting question is, and this is not just because I'm an SEC guy mostly, but the Ole Miss Penn State question of both of those teams, 2 losses. Ole Miss's 2 losses are to Georgia and Alabama, both on the road. Penn State losses are to Michigan and Penn State, one of those being at home. Who should be ranked 10? Who should be ranked 11? Maybe this matters for bowl games. I really don't think it does because the conferences and Penn State will go to the Rose Bowl. I don't know what Ole Miss will do if Missouri's ahead of them because Missouri will probably get that higher bowl game, that New Year's Six Bowl. But I would put Ole Miss at 10 above Penn State. I think we've seen Ole Miss, play better football. I think we've seen Ole Miss play more consistent football. At least against, say, Alabama on the road. I know they kind of got blown out by Georgia late in the season, but that was in Athens. You kind of understand that one. But I'm not a believer in Penn State. I think it's a good football team. I think it's a great defense. I think the offense has shown us some stuff as of late, but it's against lesser competition. So I would flip those two around. Ole Miss at 10, Penn State at 11 are two things that I would consider, but that's kind of being a little bit nitpicky. But I do think if you put those, like Brett said in the chat, if you put those teams head to head, I would favor Ole Miss in that matchup. Just don't think Penn State would be able to get it done too much on the offensive side of the football. RC Bateman, Texas's win over Bama is key. I agree, man. 100% agree. And I know a lot of Alabama fans were in my mentions all weekend long, really pissed at me, saying that I'm just still thinking about 2012, and that's the reason why I said that. No, it has nothing to do with me losing to Alabama over a decade ago. Let's move on from the past. This is clearly the only thing that matters to me is what have you done against that opponent? That opponent went into your house and won by double digits. And say all you want about, yeah, we've gone so much better. Texas has gone better too. That defensive backfield for Texas has significantly improved. That defense can get after the quarterback. That offense with those playmakers. We've even seen losing their star running back, the depth that they have at the running back position. Quinn Ewers when healthy. I think Texas is a complete football team. I would favor Texas over Oregon, which is why I go back to the original conversation of why I think Texas should be ranked ahead of Oregon. Harder strength of schedule. I think they look better at the eye test. But the committee obviously does not see the same way, and that's why Oregon, with a win, looks like they will be into the playoffs when it's all said and done. Darren asks, how do you think Texas would fare against UGA? I think it's a tough matchup. I said this last week, and I heard it from Joel Klatt. I thought he made a good point about this. I've kind of said this in the past about certain teams that have given Georgia issues in the past. And he discussed this as well. Then he kind of went into some teams that would give them trouble. So, kind of if you looked at Georgia over the past 2 years, what has been the games that have been close or games that have been losses? Well, it's been against teams with elite receivers and teams with really, really good quarterbacks. Alabama 2 years ago, when obviously Bryce was quarterback and when they were healthy at the receiving position, they beat the brakes off Georgia in the SEC championship game. They got banged up, lost both their top receivers in the national championship game. Georgia took advantage. They ended up winning. Ohio State last year, you have an elite quarterback who's playing out of his mind right now as a rookie in the NFL, and an elite receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. Almost won that football game. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get knocked out. Who knows what happens in the fourth quarter? Like, that's the type of ball team that gives anyone fits. A team that could play with 2, 3, 4 receivers and create some matchups and a quarterback that's accurate with the football at all 3 levels. So you look at Texas, they have a good offensive line. They have really good receivers on the outside. All 3 of them are playing at a really high level. Even Jordan Whittington has taken a huge stride from last year to this year. And Quinn Ewers looks really good right now. It's like, that's a team that would scare me a little bit versus Texas or versus Georgia. And I think that's like, there's a handful of teams out there that do. If I'm Georgia Bulldogs, one is Texas. 2, possibly Ohio State because of their receivers. I still think Michigan is built like Georgia, but Georgia's just a little bit better. So I don't think that scares me as much as a team that can throw it all around the ballpark. And Texas is one of them that could do that. I think Oregon would scare me the most outside of Alabama. Charlie, I'm thinking you're talking about when it comes to Georgia, possibly right now. I somewhat, if you look at Oregon, what they do offensively, it's not as much vertical passing game. Like, if you saw what T-Bob tweeted earlier today when it came to the Heisman finalists, so like the 3 quarterbacks. So you got Jaden and Bo and Michael Penix. You look at like the yards per completion. Bo Nix was at the bottom of that. Their offense is mostly built on the RPOs, the run pass, the quick bubbles, the quick slants. Get the ball to Bo Nix's hands, get him on the run. He showed me a little bit more last game with some of the vertical passing, but that's not where they want to live. They want to live in that dink and dunk world. Get the ball out now, get the ball to Franklin, get the ball to the guys with speed and space, and let them miss out there. So like that, to me, when you look at Georgia, what does Georgia do well? Georgia runs, and Georgia can run sideline to sideline. They got speed. Same thing with Alabama. Like Oregon, I don't know would fare necessarily as well against Alabama or Georgia because of the overall speed on that side of the ball defensively. I think it could match, if not beat, what Oregon does present. So I don't think Oregon would stand a chance versus Alabama or Georgia if they face either one of those on a neutral site. Craig says Oregon is fraudulent, 0% worry me if I'm Georgia. I agree. Like I don't worry about Oregon if I'm, Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, like teams with elite speed and length that can run sideline to sideline, I think can slow down that offense. Not like like I said, I like Oregon. It's a good football team. They're good on both sides. I just think that their offense isn't anything that would scare me consistently down the football field. Not saying they can't do it, just not where their bread and butter is when it's all said and done. Let's keep going with the chats here. Brett, Aaron speaking facts. Appreciate that. Everyone, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. We do love all the support on our way to 9K. We are so close to getting to that 9K. Then the March to 10K is right after that. FSU and Oregon would get slaughtered in the playoffs. I think that's the tough thing. And I think Herb Street kind of hit on that a little bit in the show too. And I think that's everyone's worry. We've seen the past 2 years, Cincinnati. Let's not forget about Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a team that went undefeated back-to-back seasons. Can Cincinnati realistically beat Alabama in that playoff game? No, I don't think anyone gave them a shot. They played competitively. I'll give them that. Like they played more competitively than I thought they would. But that's another one. Like you're just essentially putting a team in there to get slaughtered by a big boy, and they lost, but they went undefeated. So like at some point you have to give them access to the playoff, and it was kind of a cool story of a group of 5 team. Florida State is a Power 5 undefeated winner. They deserve to get in, regardless of what you think and how bad they're going to get beat. Same thing, like you could talk about TCU last year. TCU ended up winning, obviously, the first round. Michigan didn't have their signals, and I guess TCU duped them a little bit. Ended up getting thrashed in the national championship game, 65-7. So, was TCU ever a team that really had a legit chance of winning a national championship? Probably not. But based on what they did that season, they deserve to get in, just like Cincinnati deserved to get in the year before. So, yeah, Florida State would probably get stomped in the first round. It would be interesting to see, and I think this would happen. So Georgia wins, Michigan win. Nothing changes. 1-2 stays the same. Uh, Florida State wins, Oregon wins. Obviously, if Washington wins, Washington would say 3. I would think the committee would move Oregon, a one-loss Oregon, to 3 over an undefeated Florida State. For a number of reasons. One, Oregon revenged their loss. And I think the committee just really likes Oregon right now. And 2, I think the committee also understands that they're not dumb. Losing Jordan Travis is a major, major issue for the Florida State Seminoles. You can't give the number 1 seed the harder game. You just can't do it. Yeah, we'll give Florida State, you went undefeated. We ain't going to kick you out of the playoffs, but no way in hell are we going to give the easier win in our minds, in a lot of people's minds, to Michigan instead of Georgia. So I think that is something that would be interesting if that all unfolds. Florida State beats Louisville, Oregon beats Washington. Obviously, like we've discussed, Oregon would probably stay in above Texas based on where the rankings have consistently been. If FSU would stay at 4, Oregon move to 3, I would bet that would be the case, and the committee would kind of reassure us that, hey, losing Jordan Travis, while we believe that they're a playoff football team, we necessarily don't believe that they should get that number 3 spot. Neil Weaver. So FSU gets in if they win, period, question mark. Yes, 100%. If FSU wins, it would honestly be somewhat embarrassing if you don't put them in the playoffs. Just be honest. You have to play the game. I can say all I want that FSU would lose. All I want. But it's still an FSU team with elite playmakers on the outside, a really good running back in Benson, really good defense line that could get after the quarterback. Who knows? Maybe magic could happen. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the quarterback gets hot. This ain't like an NBA playoff where there's 7 games where maybe you get lucky once, but it doesn't matter. All you need to do is get lucky one time. That's it. So if you win 13 games and you're in a Power 5 conference, your butt is going to be in the playoffs. So yes, that would be in if they win out when it's all said and done. Appreciate everyone obviously jumping in the chat. RC Bateman, lad update. Will he play? Speaking about Ladd McConkey for Georgia, I don't know. I'm guessing he will probably play along with Brock Bowers, Tate, Rara, probably just holding them off until the game. And not think they're too worried about Georgia Tech this past weekend. Aaron, if Bama beats Georgia and are not let into the college football playoffs, this would feel like a tainted national title, whoever ends up winning. Sounds like you are an SEC fan. It would be weird. It would be weird. It would be very odd to have a national championship or a playoff without an SEC football team, especially when the part of the country that cares most about the playoffs resides in the Southeast. So I wonder what that would do to viewership. I'm sure a lot of media people and the college football playoff are hoping that doesn't happen. Let's pull up the rankings one more time. I just want to see something. So if Georgia and Alabama don't get in, you're saying Michigan, which is a big brand, is probably in. Oregon, Florida State, or just say Washington. We'll say Washington wins because that's for sure then a more difficult opportunity for Alabama to get in. Michigan, Washington, Florida State. I guess who else would go in over, and then Texas. So it would still be some big brands. I think the committee would be fine with that. It would be very unique to have 2 of the most talented football teams in America, Georgia and Alabama. I think most people would agree Georgia and Alabama, if this was a 12-team playoff, would most likely find a way into the top 4, if not both of them find their way into the national championship. Could both be on the outside looking in if Alabama does beat Georgia this weekend. So that would be Sad, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of SEC fans at the end of the day claiming that that was the national championship game if neither team does make it into the Final Four. We will see. We will see. I guess if you're an SEC fan, you're in no loyalty to either Georgia or Alabama. You're somewhat leaning towards Georgia this weekend if you want to ensure that the SEC puts a team into the playoffs. ESPN has the most influence in the college football playoff room. Little E, maybe, I don't know. I need to do that. Sit into that. The simulation. I got invited a year ago, but it was during football season and I had a game and just wasn't able to do it. So I'm hoping to do it next year, possibly in the off season, to see if I can get in there. Let's see if there's anything else good. If not, we will hit the good night button and get ready for tomorrow. My dog said no one would watch. I'm guessing if there was no SEC team, and I think it would significantly hurt viewership, no doubt about it. Which team is harder to defend, Georgia or Bama? Depends on what you got defensively. They're very different offensively. Very different. I had this debate with Cole earlier today, Kubek, of which quarterback would you take if you were building a football team right now? And he picked Milroe. Obviously, having a running quarterback in this day and age is such an advantage. And it's different. I mean, I think both are have their unique challenges. Obviously, Georgia this goes back to what I talked about earlier. Like, what's given Georgia problems defensively? It's not been a running quarterback in the years past, and maybe this year, but the past 2 years, it's been teams that could throw the ball that have multiple receivers. Well, what does Georgia have this year? Georgia has the elite quarterback. Georgia has the elite tight end. Georgia has the elite receivers. So, like, that is an offense that can stress you in multiple ways all over the ball field. Well, Alabama stresses you in other ways. Alabama stresses you with the deep ball. And obviously, Alabama stresses you with Jalen's ability to create and run as well. So I don't know if one's necessarily better than the other or one's harder to defend than the other. It depends more on what your strengths are defensively on how to handle that. Like, if I got a really stout front four, then give me Jalen all day. You're giving me all day long. Like, if I had Georgia's front four from a year ago, give me Bama right now. I'll eat them up. If I have, I still think even if you have a really good defensive backfield, that's just a lot of weapons for even a really good defensive backfield to be able to slow down when you have 3 or 4 really talented receivers and a talented quarterback that can find his one-on-one matchup. So, yeah, both are great. It's going to be a fun game in Atlanta this weekend, and we'll be breaking it down tomorrow for you live 1 p.m. Eastern. Murray, why does it look like you took a few hits to the pen before you went this bit? No. It's just putting 2 kids to sleep. It can wear your ass out a little bit. Your boy's a little tired, so it's been a long day. Get the haircut, went to the dentist, did 5 hours of radio, did an extra 30 minutes now. Need to put on a show and maybe see if the wife will give me a massage. Maybe. We'll see. All right. I'm going to get out of here before I think anything too stupid, which pisses my wife off. We will see you all tomorrow. Don't forget, once again, like, subscribe. If you haven't seen the Pollock interview, it was a blast. Pollock is such a great dude to kind of chat with and get his thoughts about where college football is today. Obviously, you don't hear him as much because he's not on college game day anymore, sadly. Will definitely be somewhere next year. Thank you, my dog. I named my bulldog Murray. Hell yeah, let's go. But we will see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be breaking down SEC Championship, Pac-12 Championship, Big Ten Championship, Big 12 Championship, ACC Championship, maybe a group of 5. We'll see. I don't know. But come here first. We appreciate it. Love you guys. Mwah. See y'all tomorrow.